All right. Hello and welcome, everyone. Today's video is part of the ongoing effort to expand the public archive, which you can check out at brozime.com. I'm developing the public archive to be an all-in-one, easy-to-use guide for new and returning Warframe players. If you'd like to get early access to the project notes in progress, or to provide feedback or new ideas for the public archive, you can become a member on Patreon, or additionally, subscribe on Twitch. Thanks so much to all of my current subs and patrons for supporting the project. Now let's jump into the video. All right. Hello, everyone, and welcome. So today we are going to be talking about the master leveling path for focus. How to get from the very beginning as a new player entering into focus to having all of the important stuff. Notably, not having everything, but having all of the things that actually tend to matter, which is different from just complete all the trees, as that is not what my advice is going to be. We are going to be talking about what order exactly to level things in to be the most efficient with your time. So with that, let's get started. You'll notice that I have split things up, and I'm going to be going over the whys of each different section. Also, we're here right now, so you'll probably see this video right in here whenever we are done with it, and you can see it live if you're actually watching it. But we're going to be going through all these sections and why each section is important and why you would go this route as opposed to doing anything else. So for that, this guide does assume that you are starting on Zenerek. And the reason that it assumes you are starting on Zenerek is because in the second dream, Zenerek is the one that all new players should pick in my evaluation. It helps you fix your energy economy and just makes the energy economy way more lenient and way better, especially for the most valuable frames for new players. Those frames being like Rhino, Nezha, Zephyr, Octavia. Tons of extremely good frames benefit immensely from Zenerek and can cheap out in other areas of their build because Zenerek is there helping them out. So Zenerek, extremely valuable for new players, although later on, I think currently a lot of players will end up switching to Materai as they get more of their focus skills unlocked and as they find other ways to patch up their energy economy. So this does assume you start on Zenerek. For that, if you did not start on Zenerek, you will need to unlock Zenerek for the beginning of this guide, but you could skip to the second part if you started on Materai, and you could skip this initial leveling, but you will definitely want to go back and get it later because the passes from Zenerek are very important. But if you did start on Zenerek, you will skip the first 75,000 focus needed, as that is going to be required for the 50k to unlock the school, and then 25k in order to get the very first node, which is in Zenerek, Energy Pulse. That'll cost you 75k basically just to get into the door at the beginning of this guide, really. After that, you want to unlock the base level of Wellspring. Wellspring is important as it is the ability that fixes your energy economy. Your first ability creates a well of energy for 8 seconds. Allies passing through the well gain 5 energy a second for 30 seconds. Now, whenever this is low level, it does not start at 5 energy a second for 30 seconds. So right after you unlock it, you want to immediately get to level 1 of Wellspring. The reason for that is because there are 4 total levels. There's unranked, and then rank 1, 2, and 3. At rank 0, at unranked, just unlocked, you get 3 energy a second. But the middle 2 ranks, level 1 and level 2, give you 4 energy a second. So you just want to get the 4 energy a second as soon as possible. So you want level 1 of Wellspring, because that is a 33% increase in the amount of energy you're going to be generating per second, which is really good. The levels get exponentially more expensive as you get later in. So just the first level of Wellspring is going to give you a nice base. Obviously, if that's the only ability you care about, which is going to be the case for a lot of players, feel free to just invest as much focus in this as you want, and you're going to get that nice 5 energy a second at the end. But at the very beginning, just 1 level in this is going to do you really well for your just overall output of energy. And obviously, the time changes there, but the time is much less important than the amount of actual energy per second is going to do for you. After that, Void Siphon and Void Flow. So, Void Siphon and Void Flow, these are increase operator energy regeneration and increases operator energy. These are the pool. This is the pool of energy you use for being invisible and void dashing. So, you're not going to be able to like void sling around as much or have that regeneration and energy come back as quickly without Void Flow and Void Siphon leveled. This gives you just the raw amount, how long you can stay invisible, and how many Void Slings you can do, and this is how often you can do it, essentially. Both absolutely vital skills. So, these, very similarly, you will want to get to level 1 as pretty much as quickly as you can so that you can have more freedom with void slinging around and also have higher access to invisibility, whether that be for hacking or for like reviving a teammate and many other different things that you can use the operator for. So I consider this to be the just basic level of fixing your energy economy and having a decently useful operator. Just these skills, which is 660,000 focus. Notably, if you are a MR10 player, you can get 300,000 focus per day, and I do have other videos that talk about grinding focus. There was one very recently for grinding on the Zeneric. This is not that bad. This is only like, 2 days and change of leveling, and then you are going to have this just done. And obviously, if you take off this first 75k and your MR10, you can get this done in 2 days, well, less than 2 days by a small margin. And that's going to mean that you have a nice baseline setup for your operator. After that, we have starter Eidolon unlocks. So recently, there have been some buffs to Eidolons in terms of the amount of focus that they give out. Currently, if you do a full Tridolon, as it's called, which means you kill Terralist, Gantulist, and Hydralist in a row, just that full set of 3, in terms of rewards, you are going to get 177,500 focus per set of them that you do. That means that for an MR10 player, if you can do 2 of those in one night, which is 50 minutes long, and 2 of those, let me tell you, not hard, especially in a group, and especially with one person who knows how to do it well, you're going to be able to get more focus than you can earn in a day, because all of the focus that you get from that is uncapped. Because of that, this becomes way more important for someone that actually wants to progress through this system. And if you are wanting to progress through this system quickly, you will need Matter-Eye. By far, the most important thing. So, with that, we have to come out of our basic energy economy fixing and those Warframes that benefits and like the large majority of content, gonna be fantastic. But right after that, you want to get in to these unlocks. Now, it's worth noting that these unlocks are not only for Eidolons, they will also help you farm angels and stuff in the Zarmon if you're going to be doing that for a lot of your focus and just doing your daily caps and stuff. Also very helpful. Also, a lot of the skills that we use here are also used for one-shotting the new Archon fights. So these skills are going to be useful kind of no matter what. Big damage buffs are still just big damage buffs. So in our Matter-Eye tree, we're going to back out. You will need to get a Matter-Eye lens and get the first 50k is going to have to come from that lens. So those lenses can be found in many places on the page that's going to be releasing. There's a whole other section for where you can find any given lenses. Also, if you're out doing the Zaramon farms, you're probably going to have a greater Matter-Eye lens by this point, so it's probably not going to be too difficult for you to get access to that first 50k, as that's quite a low amount. But once you have access, you want to immediately grab 1 level of Phoenix Talons. Now, don't be fooled. This is a good skill. You are going to come back for it later for sure, but right off the bat, it is not the most important thing. So you just want to get the base level of Phoenix Talons after initially unlocking Matter-Eye, which is that initial 75k that we talked about from Zeneric starting, that you will not have unless you started on Matter-Eye, and then you'll save the focus here. In one of the trees, no matter what you picked, you will save 75,000 at some point. So unlock Phoenix Talons for that 25k, and then the most important thing in Matter-Eye, Void Strike. So you have the initial 60k to unlock Void Strike, and then you get 2 more levels of it. This is because you get considerable percentile increases on this whenever you get it 2 ranks higher. That last rank is a ton of additional focus and is worth it if you really want to go down that route. But you're going to get the vast majority of what you're going to get out of this ability whenever it is rank 2. But that is going to cost you 320,000, which you'd need to be MR14 in order to get that much in one day. So it can be a steep ask. Feel free to just like skip 1 level of this and like just get level 1 if this is too much. But it is extremely, extremely worth it. However, the additional 400,000 you could spend to get the max level of Void Strike, if you're willing to spend 320k, can be worth it to you depending on what you want really. And then after that, we want to get Inner Gaze and Eternal Gaze. So Inner and Eternal, also really important. They do the exact same thing as the passives in Zeneric, except it's for your amps. So, increases energy for amps and Void Beam by 40% at max, and then increases energy regeneration rate for amps and Void Beam by 60%. So, this is extremely useful because it's just your other energy pool, which is your amp, getting these huge bonuses that you want for your other energy pool already and that you should already have from Zeneric. Extremely useful, allows you to fire more shots more often, extremely, extremely good. Just raw increases your overall DPS is very, very good. So you'll want both of these at least at a base level, and that's going to be really important. Also, randomly, that's happening now. Don't worry about that. Thank you, Grithorian. So yeah, we have that as our start here, and that is what I would consider the baseline, the initial for getting into Eidolons. Just for starting up, that's extremely, extremely helpful and useful. Now, notably, we have unbinds. The gazes can be skipped if sticking to Matter Eye. I'm going to explain that in a moment. With these next four, this is the last part of the basic package, and it's expensive. It is max and unbind Eternal Gaze, Inner Gaze, Void Siphon, and Void Flow. However, if you are going to be sticking to Matter Eye in general, you can skip a full 1.5 million focus here by just staying on Matter Eye and getting then you don't need to unbind these, essentially. For Void Siphon and Void Flow, you are just going to want them in general, and you are going to be using Matter Eye sometimes if you're going to be doing Eidolons, so you do just kind of have to do this. But skipping out on the unbinding here is the difference is you can either spend 6.3 million or you can spend 4.8, and the other 1.5 million is really, really useful. So if you can spare it and just want to stay on Matter Eye, and that's going to be where these two skills are more important anyway, you can do that. But you really want to unbind all of these as your first waybounds that can be unbound. Also, in terms of unbinding them, the Brilliant Shards you can just get from regular Terror lists. So if you're not super confident in doing, Terry, Harry, and Gary, you can just do Terror list. Terror list is not a big deal. You can absolutely manage that, trust me. Or you can request help for it, which is not too bad at all. After that, we have our advanced packages. Now, these are going to do different things, and they're all important for different reasons. The first one, and they are in order of what I think is more important. We have Optimize Eidolons and Angels, Operator Dies Too Much, and the Self-Revive package, and then the rest. So these are all the advanced packages, and they give you what I think to be the best stuff. So if you just want to farm Eidolons better, first and foremost, the number one thing is to give yourself the skills to succeed there. So we have Unlock Power Transfer and Contamination Wave. Power Transfer is this skill, which is 100% amp critical damage for 20 seconds on switching to Operator, 50% casting speed on switching to Warframe, and then Contamination Wave is a wave that you send out that makes it so you deal more damage with your Operator on the enemies that you hit it with. Both of these just basically boil down to saying do more damage, and those are obviously very good. And the immediately following next step is to alternate between them, leveling the both of them until they're both at max. It doesn't really matter which one you prioritize, whether you do Contamination Wave first or if you do Power Transfer first, but just go back and forth until they're both maxed out, because they're both absolutely phenomenal nodes that you're going to want to have maxed out. With that, it is important to note that there is a consideration for doing Contamination Wave first if you have Eternal Onslaught on your amp, which some of you might, especially if you've been farming the Zaramon. It's a really good arcane, and it is, kind of the best one for operators in general. So if you have that, you are going to need Contamination Wave in order to help lower your energy. It's the easiest way to do so. So I would consider getting this one first if you, for whatever reason, already have Eternal Onslaught. Beyond that, Max Void Strike is the immediate next step. Just get that full 1000% damage. It's worth the 400k. I don't really need to argue with you very much, I think, in order to tell you that, getting to your full 1000% additional damage is very good. I don't think we need much discussion on why that is the case. After that, maxing Phoenix Talons. Phoenix Talons is just raw damage, physical damage for you, and operator damage just in general. Full on 30% damage increase. This is very good. I think it's just obvious why you should get this. That is super powerful. After that, unlock and max Chained Sling and unlock and max Sling Strength. Now, it is worth noting that Sling Strength is 40% ability strength for 20 seconds, and not all frames can take advantage of this, and it is not that important for Eidolons, but Chain Sling is incredibly good for mobility, and it is just awesome to have, and you can get around really quickly, especially if you just get used to it in a lot of tile sets. It's just very, very good for getting places fast. And Sling Strength is just, if you're going to be on Matter Eye anyway, because you want to go places fast, the 40% ability strength is really good for the vast majority of Warframes. And especially if you're on the newer side, that 40% can be the difference between a full armor strip and not a full armor strip in a lot of different cases, depending on what abilities you're going to be using. So I really would just suggest it. So while you absolutely could skip this 1.1 million or sling strength, you probably should just grab it at this point. You're probably going to want it. But this is 4.2 million. Notably, if you saved the 1.5 million up here, you can pretty much immediately, and by pretty much immediately, I mean definitely immediately, unlock both Power Transfer, Contamination Wave, and max them both, which is part of the huge consideration to save this up here if you're going to continue to use Matter-Eye, and then just immediately invest it into this first package if you're going to be sticking to Matter-Eye, because this is a lot of power to immediately give yourself. And even if you're using a suboptimal amp, say you have like a 111, for example, and if you don't know what that means, check the site for the guide on amps. It tells you what all that means. So there's a huge consideration, basically just because this costs exactly that, basically, for you to just immediately go and get this instead of unbinding those right away, because unbinding does not give you any additional stats. Then we have the Operator Dies Too Much package. So, put very simply, if you die a lot as the Operator, and you think it's very annoying, and you hate it, this is the reason to go into Vazarin and go get all of the skills in Vazarin that are of any use. Now, some people will argue that Vazarin does other useful things, to which I will counter with, no, it doesn't. Matter-Eye and Zeneric are definitely the top two schools, and the only other school worth considering is Unairu. But Vazarin's passives are pretty good. So, in Vazarin, we will unlock it and get Mending Unity, which does not matter at all, get the base level of it, and then immediately get Enduring Tides and Rejuvenating Tides. Enduring Tides will give you 200% health and armor for your Operator, which is a lot of survivability, and Rejuvenating Tides will give you 6 health per second. Both very good. You go in here, you unbind these, get the fuck out, a cool 3.5 million focus, and you are done with Vazarin. You never have to look at it again. You could never re-enter Vazarin, and you'll be just fine, unless they buff it at some point, which I would hope they would. Vazarin is by far, I think, the worst school. Far and away, it has the least uses, except for going in and getting the waybounds. You can put them on the other schools. If you couldn't, you'd never enter it. Outside of that, we have the third most useful school, which is Unairu. So this is just a general, like, good, useful school for doing certain things, mainly standing back up whenever you die. If you like to play particularly squishy Warframes, like if you're like a big Banshee player, or if you're like big on Korra, but you're maybe not experienced yet, and like you die every once in a while here and there, Unairu can be really useful, especially just like during the learning process, for you to just stand back up if you were to die. It is worth noting this does kind of need you to have a decent amp, which is why this is third instead of second, honestly. But it is also kind of expensive, mostly because you basically just take what you need to max in Vazarin, and then you have to add some other stuff to it, because Unairu has more useful things in it. That being, you will do Unlock Unairu, and then Unlock Poise, which is, of course, the first two abilities, that first 75k. So you'll have Poise at the base level, and then immediately, the reason you're here, Last Gasp, you unlock that and max it, and then you get Caustic Strike and max it. I suggest highly getting Last Gasp first, maxing this out, because this is the skill you're here for. And you might think you would want to go for the other Unbind, which is Vengeance, and that is valid. You are valid to go to this one first if you are not ever going to use Unairu. If you're not ever going to use Unairu, especially like if you're going to level this while you are, say, doing Cascade, you're going to want to go the other way, which is Caustic Strike first. And the reason for that is because whenever this is maxed out, this is a full enemy armor strip, which is extremely useful, especially in places like Cascade if you're farming your focus there. So having a full armor strip is also, while you're in Unairu, going to make it so you stand back up, and even if you're in Steel Path content, use Caustic Strike, remove all the armor, and then your amp can actually kill enemies. That is exceedingly useful because it means you can stand back up. Vengeance will, of course, help with that because you're going to get more and more damage, but the armor is way more than a doubling of your damage. Like, this is 100% additional damage and then 25% per second. It is way more, at high levels, way more impactful to get rid of 100% of armor than it is to do even 300% damage. 300% damage is tripling your damage. Removing all the armor from a Steel Path enemy is like multiplying your damage by 20 or 30. It is an obscene increase and is much better than Vengeance, but of course, you'd like to have both. but it is worth noting that these are a little interchangeable in which way you go with getting them, depending on what your exact use case is. Beyond that, and these two are much more optional, especially if you're basically just here to get last gasp so you can use it with Unairu, or rather you can use it with Matarai, Unairu Wisp, and Magnetic Flare. So, Unairu Wisp is 100% chance to summon an Unairu Wisp per enemy hit by Caustic Strike. The Wisp will seek out the nearest ally within affinity range, increasing operator damage by 100% for 20 seconds. So, you use Caustic Strike, and not only do you completely strip them of armor, but you also get double damage, plus Vengeance, which is another 100%, and then you're out here killing a bunch of dudes. Very, very easily killing a bunch of dudes. The last one that I would suggest getting is Magnetic Flare. Magnetic Flare is basically just Caustic Strike, except for it's shields. It's your second ability. It does the same thing for shields, except for it's like a bubble that you put up as opposed to like a bomb that you send out to explode. Magnetic Boost, worth noting, is just not very useful. Void Slinging through it is going to, increase its radius by double, which is kind of whatever. You could come back for this much later, but the important thing, if you're going to get it at all, is going to be Magnetic Flare, Caustic Strike, Unairu Wisp, Vengeance, and Last Gasp, and the rest of this you can kind of very much live without and not worry about. So with that, that's all of the stuff that I consider to be essential in Focus. It is quite a bit. It is, of course, going to be quite an amount of farming. If you do this through exclusively Eidolons, it's about, I think I mathed it out, and it was, I definitely didn't redo that math real quick. It's about 118 Tridolons worth of Focus in order to max everything out that I feel is necessary. Obviously, if you want to completely max out Focus, it's going to be considerably more than that, as completely finishing Focus is around 52 million Focus, and this is around 20 million, which is considerably less than half of that. But 118 Tridolons can be kind of imposing, because if you take that number and then you multiply it by, say, the 10 minutes that each of that is going to take you, and then you divide that by 60 in order to get the hours, you're looking at about 20 hours, let's say, realistically, of doing just Eidolons in order to get Focus into a place where it is completely useful to you and you have all of the main functionality of it, and you can do, Eidolons extremely well, and you don't really need much else. However, there are a few things to talk about within the rest that are things that you might want that are also additions to this. So, after you're done getting all of the above packages, which we just said is going to be about 20 hours of farming, which is, of course, restricted by the day-night cycle, so it can be kind of tough. It's unfortunate. They should really remove that. But after you've done and gotten those, it is advised to finish up the rest of the waybounds, which the only waybounds that are not talked about up here are the Naron ones, which are Mind Step and Farsling. All those do is make you sprint faster as the operator and make you sling farther. Those are both nice, but they're not something that I would consider to be core and absolutely necessary to what you're doing. After that, what you want to do is whatever. You can do whatever else you want and unlock whatever else you want in Focus. Just slowly work on it over time and just, go for whatever you want. However, these two things that I've listed here, while not, necessary, are very, very useful. And that is Zeneric's Temporal Drag plus Temporal Shot. And the reason that those are so very useful is because there are a bunch of enemies that are very vulnerable to this. Slowing an enemy by 80%, and then, occasionally this part is useful where you get the 100% additional headshot damage. But the 80% slow, this works on stuff like Thumpers to make it so that they can't spin and they're very slow and very easy to hit. It works on the vast majority of enemies and is super powerful just for making things more convenient for you. Using this on a Lich to get the max temporal shot, or on a Sister of Parvos, very, very powerful effect for just making them stand still and just take the headshots until they die. Really, really good abilities here. Very useful, especially if you're going to be on Zeneric a lot, because whatever frame you really enjoys having Zeneric or doesn't gain too much from Matarai. If you're going to be on Zeneric very often, these two are great. Otherwise, the Naron Power Spike, this is used in some more niche scenarios. There are frames that will use this. Korra will use this in order to maintain combo. It basically makes it so that instead of all of your combo falling off at once, it's just one at a time, which means if you're Korra, you're pretty much constantly maintaining a full 12x combo. However, I don't think it's as good as just sticking to Matarai or sticking to Zeneric, because Zeneric can completely fix Korra's energy economy, meaning you don't have to run stuff like Proteus 3 as your subsume, and really freeze her up. I don't really feel like the combo is going to add that much, especially at the levels where people usually play. maybe if you're going to level cap, you'll want Naron, but the vast majority of people just aren't doing that. So for like Korra, Baruch, maybe Excal, maybe Atlas if you're fucking around, there are a few Warframes that do want this, but it's pretty niche overall. But yeah, that is the full like needs in order of like what the best stuff in focus is and the best way to level it to kind of, you know, save the most focus and get the most bang for your buck as you're going through the system. Hopefully you guys have enjoyed this and can be on your farming way for the focus system. Let me know if I've gotten anything, you know, if there's something important that you should get earlier or anything like that you think should be different. Let me know in the comments. But otherwise, I hope you've enjoyed this, and I'll see you tomorrow. Also, hey everyone, we have a new outro. So sorry this has taken a little while to get going for those of you that are over on the Patreon, but thank you so much to all of the $10+ patrons. Brutus Salazar, Dylan Dworsky, Efrain, Jeremy Stevens, Joshua Adams, Malik X. Williams, Mitchta, Trent Hallmark, Victor, and Zach Zahner. Thank you very much for being $10 patrons. And also, thank you very much to just all the patrons in general. It's been really awesome to try and get this big website stuff off the ground. And I hope you guys continue to support me and are enjoying the content that is going up there, including this video. So yeah, it's been a fantastic time so far, and hopefully we can just keep it going. Have a good one, everybody. Hopefully you guys enjoy the new outro as well. I think it came out pretty nice. And that should do it. Later, all.